the Military Women's Coalition took the lead on legislation, on things like that. Our organization was like the protesting arm, right? Like, because that's my weirdly niche thing, is I am very good at this. So we came up with an SOP, like, and we still have it, and we're using it in 5051s to activate veterans around the country again. I think if we can create an SOP and get someone that is an expert on civil disobedience to give us a class, I'm willing to empower veterans to go do sit-ins at the VA, to do all of that, because there is going to be no more powerful image ever in this century of veterans getting dragged out of VAs in handcuffs, right? That is going to activate not only veterans, it's going to activate civilians, right? Like, I'm here for it.
It didn't really hit home for me until you said it that way. Can you say that again? Just the part about veterans getting...
Yeah. The most important picture that of this century is going to be veterans getting drug out of VAs in handcuffs for sit-ins until everything is restored. Right? The cuts, all of it, right? Like the erasure of history. Like, we as veterans need to activate, and we need to do sit-ins in weird places. Because it's going to give, you were talking earlier about like no national coverage, right? It's one of our things too. Is like, man, I organize on a local, state, and national level, and I'm like, why isn't the news covering this? There's tens of thousands of people protesting.
Yep.
Every national news syndicate will pick up veterans getting drug out of VAs in handcuffs. Everyone. So if there's somebody in the comments that knows a civil disobedience teacher, come find me. I am here to organize it. I am here to push it. Yeah, like, let's do it. But we have to be trained, right? Because absolutely. I know when you look back on the civil rights era and there's people getting hit with bats, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida. Like I said, we had Axe Handle Sunday, where they like literally beat people with axe handles in downtown Jacksonville, Florida. I currently don't have the skill set or the training for my PTSD not to snap, and for me to like get extremely violent very quick. And I know that. I know that about myself, and most of the veteran community would agree. Like, we're all like that, right? So let's get trained. But absolutely, let's go do sit-ins at the VA.
So one of the people who spoke at the rally was Susan Schnall. I may be mispronouncing that. And Susan, if you're out there and you watch this and I mispronounce it, I apologize. Susan was the Vietnam veteran nurse who got a dishonorable discharge for protesting the Vietnam War. And I feel like my cat is going insane behind me, Mikey. I feel like people from that civil rights struggle that engaged in civil disobedience would be perfect to step up and say, hey, here's what we did. Especially because there's not a lot of widely distributed materials about what types of civil disobedience there were. We see pictures of the aftermath, like the Selma Bridge, where people got clubbed and dogs were set upon them and fire hoses and things like that. But what other things did they do? Like, that is an area where I am woefully undereducated, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but there it is.
Well, you have to think back on the era, right? So they did the boycott of the buses, which inevitably probably led to the murder of MLK, was that boycott. So they did economic boycotts, they did sit-ins, they did marches. They did all of the things that are happening right now in the country, right? Like, there's economic boycotts going on, there's protesting. We're not at the sit-ins. right? So like,
Yeah,
let's get there.
The sit-ins were different in the sense that they were going to places where they weren't welcome. So they were sitting on the white counters. There were black people sitting on white counters. So the act of sitting in was being arrested. I'm sorry, Doug. I didn't mean to cut you off. You're about to say that.
I was gonna say, so that civil disobedience, the disobedience is the part that they honed in on. Going on the bus and sitting in the front seat was the disobedience, right? Going where you were supposed to be in the back, you weren't allowed in the front, right? So that's why that was disobedient. Going on the march through Selma wasn't just because you were a group of black people, which was already they were ready to get violent for, but it's because you're blocking traffic. It's because you're being disobedient to the rules. Sitting down at the counter, as Sarge said in one of his videos, was big. Going when they took when the students went in the bus all the way through wherever they weren't supposed to go, through the colleges they're not supposed to be. So that's the deal. Is you've not only got to be the only reason why being in the VA would be disobedience is because you weren't supposed to be there, right? So at that point, it becomes that civil disobedience. Blocking traffic is civil disobedience. I say it all the time, like, what we're doing is preparation for the summertime, getting people ready, because as Chris Goldsmith says, the summertime is March time because it's cold now. We're getting people ready in small amounts. One boycott here, one boycott there, one march here, one march there, and it's every day. But there's going to have to be a time when people can't back out of their parking space at the Capitol, and they're going to call the police, and half of the police will remember whose side is whose, which we found out this weekend that some of them still remember. All right, we thought we were going to get a lot more flack than we did, but then we also found that some of them still not okay. So when they call for those police, some of them not going to come, but then some of them will. And when a congressperson can't back out of their space, at that point is when we'll those cameras are going to come, and for one of two reasons: because they can't back out and they have money, or because something got violent to take us to make sure we backed out. Right? When people start handcuffing themselves to um, the gate around the White House, the minute one comes out, it's going to be tough. But in order to get people ready for that, to do that, is that training we were talking about. Like it's not easy. It's not easy. Marching is marching and protesting right now is constitutionally available to us. The disobedient part is doing the things that the law says you can't do, but is right by human law, by God's law, by natural law. There's no reason why I can't sit here besides your law, right? But that's not real to me. There's no reason why I can't block this street besides a law that says I can't block this street. But in all actuality, we're gonna do that until somebody gets arrested, until somebody gets a water hose put on them. And so, like, remembering that part of it is going to be, it's tough to teach, but I think that we're the incremental steps that we're doing until then. I'm actually more excited after this weekend that's what we got in March, because in June it's coming. June is coming, and
for sure.
They're not going to be able to back out of those parking spaces if we do it right. If we know where we're going for planned civil disobedience, as opposed to just marching, that works too. Protests work on the sidewalks and the roads, but there's places you have to go where you're not allowed, and that's when the man gets mad. That's when the cameras come out, and people have to make a decision: are they okay with this, or are they going to sit back? And that's when the change happened. I would like to ask about, since we're on it, the 6th. You said you guys are doing the Veterans March across.
Yeah, so we're organizing for D-Day. We did our general meeting on Sunday for everybody in the group. We all said D-Day was it. So we're starting to organize people around the country towards that date to stand up protests that are veteran led, all on veteran issues, dress right dress across the country. Because I think one of the problems going on right now, like with all of the protests, is that there's just so many issues, right? And so like the intersectionality is great. But the biggest issue is the Constitution being degraded bit by bit. Right. And so that's what we're organizing about. And we're going to talk, we have 5 demands, and we'll bring those up in veteran specific issues, but it's about the Constitution and our oath to it.
So if I might jump in and fill in for Admin V, since she's usually our history buff here, the civil rights movement early on, if you read some of the books that have been written about the early histories, they really started out kind of the same way that we have here with protests and with kind of the general same kind of marches that historically have been done. And one of the reasons they pivoted to the civil disobedience was that the framing of those things, to say they're just a few uppity people and they came here and they're just going to destroy things. It's rioting. It was allowing kind of basically the white national media to frame it in a different way, to change it from the topic that they were protesting about to, oh, look at these badly behaved people of color. And by changing it to be about the very specific things, the sit-ins, the things they were targeting, it changed that narrative. It made it harder for them to spin that. Then when invariably there was the very violent backlash, that was on the TV. That was getting the national news. And for once, most of America had to deal with the reality that this was how people were being treated. It was one thing to hear someone say something about it, but to see it on their TV, in their living room, night after night, that brought it home. That changed this country. And it's on us to find a way. Maybe it is through sentence. Maybe it's through going to the VA and flooding it. But we have to change that narrative. We cannot be simply marches that are a conglomerate of various different causes. It was one thing to see everybody come together, but my one detraction on like the January 18th march was that we had so many different factions, and not all of which got along with each other. And for the most part, everybody was focused on the main thing. But I could see those points of friction. And if we're going to get everybody on the same page, we got to be focused like a blinded horse. We got to be on the, let's say, key 5 points that we have got to get done. Now, I don't know exactly what those are. Different people have different priorities, etc. But if we allow it to just meander off, we bleed energy. And we're not going to have that same kind of kinetic force behind what we're trying to do.
If I can, before I see you about to get in there, Evan, Tim, if I can real quick, I want to pose a question. Looks like you were about to. I'm sorry. I want to pose a question to Katie and Lindsey here. And I don't mean it to be controversial. It will be, though. And I want to relate it to the whole El Salvador thing going on right now. Now, we've seen people get disappeared. Just disappeared. Their names taken off a list from whatever detention center they were at. Mothers don't know what happens to their sons. They're gone. Put on a plane, sent somewhere. And then there's videos of them being marched in a different country that they've never set foot in. And the first thing the White House puts out is a closing time sing-song video with people in chains being marched out. And it says, "You gotta get out of here, yippee." The dehumanization.
Absolutely.
The dehumanization of these people is so far gone that if somebody saw them getting eaten by dogs and shot with fire hoses, I don't think enough people would care. I don't think enough people, like it did back in the day, with that, right? With the civil rights movement, and unfortunately, the dehumanization of trans people and gay people and people of color. Even though because we have more percentage, we have a better chance of making that change. I think the dehumanization of all of the groups that we're talking about have been so thorough that the only ones left that haven't been dehumanized enough to really make that change is the veterans. There's still enough people who have, even if they'll talk about it on Facebook, in the back of their minds, there's something that tells them for a long enough time, veterans, wait a minute. You mean the soldiers that I wanted to be when I was 5? You mean G.I. Joe? You mean, right? All the movies, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's the last holdout. And the rest, unfortunately, because of this sickening, disgusting MAGA movement that has turned what used to be normal people, well, people who had things in the back of their mind, and let them be as disgusting as they possibly can be. If it happened to gay people, there'd be another video with another song of them getting beat up and MAGA people cheering to be like their friends. I think the veterans community might be that last holdout. Do you agree? Am I being ridiculous? Is it too?
No, I 100% agree. And I'll take it one further, right? So in order for Trump's plan to work, he needs the military and he needs veterans. Somebody's got to fight this war for him. Okay. But this is the thing, like there's not going to be those people. So I agree with you, Doug, 100%. And that's why I think that veterans are very uniquely positioned, not just because of our skill set, but because for whatever prestige that we have.
Socially.
Yep. Right. So, but absolutely. So like we're able to, even veterans that don't like one another still stand with each other. You know, and that's one thing that I really, that separates us maybe from other people. Right. Maybe like in the South, if you've got, you got people bickering about this or that, like a veteran has come from all over the country and we love each other. You know what I'm saying? Like the only people that can make fun of us is us. Anybody else comes, like I'm Army. If I make fun of Air Force, I'll do it all fucking day. But if somebody comes and makes fun of my Air Force buddy, I'm taking their kneecap. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you don't get to do that.
We can do it.
I get to do
you
that.
You can't, outsider.
Okay.
I will shit talk the Coast Guard all day, every day. But I had a Coast Guard roommate after I got out when I was working at a video game company, and that guy was cool as fuck. Nobody else can make fun of him though. Just me.
Yeah.
And other pets,
I think
also there's like a lot of, I'm sorry, Kate, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's a lot of flag officers coming together. So, I think once we start to build this base up, we're going to see folks like Mattis speaking more publicly. You know what I'm saying? Like Mattis and Millie have already been public that dump Trump, right? Like they can't stand him. So as things start to escalate, what I think is happening more or less is some of these more prominent leaders that we need in the game, they're waiting us to set so they can spike. So I think we are doing an excellent job laying the groundwork. Once they see enough groundswell, then they're going to spike. And nobody's going to go against Mad Dog. Like Mad Dog is going to come out at some point. Like there's no way he wouldn't.
We reached out to General Mattis and a couple of other flag officers in preparation for this past weekend, and we got nothing. I don't know if it just wasn't seen, or if it was seen and was like, who are these weirdos, or if it was like went straight to spam. I don't know.
No, we just need more swell is what I'm saying. Like we don't have enough yet. We're not at that tipping point. And so like I see that when I'm working with congressional leaders too, like folks like, let's say Gillibrand, who's normally like very in the game about sexual assault in the military. She's not actioning my stuff when I bring it to her office unless I can bring the groundswell. I have to set so she can spike. And so that's the political dynamic of it. So that's why I think we're in a really good position. We're starting to get people up. We're starting to get people trained. We're starting to get people mobilized. And we'll need that contact information, Tim, because we're going to reach back out to our dearest Mad Dog. And we're going to keep pegging him.
I'm
not like
taking
that. Not taking like that. Sorry.
I caught that shit
Sorry.
So,
you know, I would agree with you, Doug. Right? Like, veterans are the last line of defense, and so is the military.
Yeah.
I won't reveal her, but one of my local organizers in my group is active duty military. I always follow the Hatch Act with her, right? Like she comes in a hat and glasses and a mask and long sleeves, because I told her that's the only way I know how to protect you. Because when we did our protests in 2020, it was the same. We had a lot of active duty join us. But I think that there's such a confusion with JAG officers being fired that there's not enough information on social media platforms to help our active duty members decide what is a lawful or unlawful order.
Right.
And so we talked about it on Sunday. We're going to start putting that on short, simple slides on TikTok, Blue Sky, so that people can see that and know. You know, veterans are in a very unique position here. And like Lindsey said, like, we're just starting, right? Like, I think we started Threads like a week ago now. It's like 900. We put up an IG and it's up to like 600, right? So it's just like, it's growing. But what we do need are large veteran organizations to get on board. I know the laws as it comes to 501c3s. I know them very well. And I can argue with people that you can do advocacy work. And since we are working on VA issues, it's considered advocacy from a legal standpoint. So one of our first calls to action that we're doing is sending letters as 5051 vets with, you know, like, I'd love y'all's logo on the letter. My logo will be on the letter, our Sisters Keeper movement, and Lindsey's coalition logo will be on it. Sent to the big five: DAV, IAVA, VFW, the American Legion, and the Vietnam Veterans of America. Either you join us or you tell us why not.
I know people at IAVA. I can get that in front of them. They're decision makers.
And the reason that this is important is lobbying power, right? Like, I am a policy nerd. That is my like autistic skill, is policy. And you have to have lobbying power for it. And there's the big five. Now, I love Facebook arguments, and I got in the largest Facebook argument with the Florida Legion, the Florida American Legion, because they had, which I am a member, my father was a lifetime member of, they had posted, you cannot wear Legion stuff to any protests. And I simple comment, funnily enough, during Trump rallies, I saw a bunch of Legion hats.
Right.
So is this a new policy, or is it only for one sect of the population?
Right.
5,000 comments later, I ended up telling Florida Legion to go fuck themselves, because there was a bunch of other veterans on there that are like, well, it's, you know, we don't want to degrade the Legion. Fuck the Legion. Either you're going to capture my generation of veteran, I am a millennial, and the younger ones by speaking up now and being about social justice and getting involved, or we're going to make sure you fucking die off. And we'll start our own goddamn organizations. Like, it's ridiculous that they don't get involved.
So I have thoughts on that. And as much as I would love to see VSOs, veteran service organizations like the American Legion and VFW, come out in support of this. The reality is that a lot of these organizations are directly tied to politics. They need political allies to help them stay afloat. And if right now, with Congress being in the hands of a one particular political party, not to mention a Supreme Court and the Oval Office, it's very difficult to get them to do anything that doesn't directly threaten veterans. So, for example, I forget whether it was the VFW or the American Legion, but basically the person who's in charge, who is elected to be in charge of those organizations, president or whatever, went and testified before Congress and basically held up a piece of paper and said, this is a contract. You have to uphold your end of the contract. And that was about as strongly worded as it gets. They need those connections to stay afloat, or they're going to cease to exist. And so I disagree with it. I think that this is a time where it needs to be us versus them, and you want to be with us, you don't want to be with them. But I don't think we'll see that. I think these organizations are going to try to color within the lines, and they're going to stay as apolitical and as bipartisan as they can. But I don't think that they're going to attend protests as the organization.
I don't want them at protests. And let me make that very clear. I want their lobbying power. They don't have to protest.
Absolutely.
They have to represent us with the power that they have in what you were just saying. Stay apolitical, but still advocate. The 5 of you get together. They have immense lobbying power. The Vietnam Veterans of America is why we have the benefits we do today. Is that organization. That's how much lobbying power that organization has. Imagine the 5 of them together advocating while we're protesting. Right? Everybody has a role in the movement.
Loss of jobs in the VA, right? In the services that are getting cut. So they're gonna lobby for the things that are, I mean, let's call it low-hanging fruit, if you will. Things that are like gimmies that they should be advocating for anyway.
Then what are they doing right now besides saying honor the contract? Like, these things are happening.
Yes.
There's every indicator that they're going to continue happening. We've already seen 2,400 people fired from the VA, the veteran suicide hotlines, the Arlington National Cemetery getting rid of all of the, if the black guys, that's DEI. The Black Medal of Honor winners only got it because DEI. The code talkers are DEI. Like, are you fucking serious? Code talkers? That's not low hanging fruit. That's like that's a cherry. That's a highly placed cherry. Like, love code talkers. Everybody knows code talkers until they don't know code talkers. But I mean, like, what the fuck? Enola Gay? Like, what are these guys doing though? Like, they're not seeing this and being like, well, that's just wrong. No shit. Do something about it. Like, why is it up to the Fan of Liberty and Now March and the
50-51.
You know what I think
showed up to the protest. Why is it up to us? Like, and I get it, groundswell, yeah. But do these motherfuckers like have a pulse? Like, this is
I mean,
code talkers.
They've got to admit that they were wrong, right? Like, they're like in it. You know what I mean? Like, they're MAGA in it. So it's for some of them, it's a little bit of a slow burn, like arguably they've got a dysregulated nervous system, right? And so they're not processing this trauma, they're not processing their emotions. And so we're going to keep nudging them, so to speak. And so that's why the groundswell is important, because hopefully over time it's going to hit close enough to them, or it's going to be big enough to them to where they really have to look at it. It's like when you're growing up and your parents didn't want you to be gay, and then all of a sudden you turned out to be gay, or your brother or sister, and then they have to stare at it right in the face, right when it's right there, right in the family. and then they've got to make a choice. Like, okay, well, I guess you're cool, right?
And 50-50, it's either going to be, well, you're not my kid anymore because that shit has happened, or it's going to be, well, as long as you're the man in the relationship and you're not taking it, I don't really care. It's some weird shit and it's not the there are a lot of cases where somebody's like, oh, well, I guess we'll have to figure this out. But there's such a wide range.
I've actually reached out to the Navajo Nation. Lindsey, I don't know if you remember, but the Navajo Nation protested with us in 2020 and 2021. They love to throw down. So as soon as that story came across, I reached out to my connection in the Navajo Nation, who sits on the council, to be like, I'm organizing again. So this, y'all ready to throw down?
I was...
I
almost said the drums are beating, and I was like, wait a minute, that could possibly be true there. No, don't say that.
But and that's the thing is, if you look at any good movement, even like labor movements, it's 3.5% of the population. There's a shit ton of studies on this. 3.5% is what needs to be activated for any good movement to work. 3.5% of the veteran population is doable, right? But the problem, and I think what Lindsey was getting at, is if you look at, did you look at like the voter statistics of this last election? 65% of veterans voted for Trump, 35% voted blue. So I'm a numbers person. In theory, we only have to get 16%. Of that 65%, if we can convince 16%, now it's the majority, right? It's 51%. And how we do that is by highlighting things like the code talkers and women. 6888 is about to be erased. I can't say her name. I have a connection at the VA who has provided me with a list. There is a list, fucking exists, of what they plan to delete off of government websites. 6888 is next. That's about probably today or tomorrow will be deleted.
Right after the movie comes out, like.
Yeah. So I asked for a list from her, and I was like, "Hey, can you send me a list? Can you send me policy memos? Can you send me things so that we can create infographics en masse?" I mean, I'll shoot it to y'all shoot it out, because some of these things, it's like, and the code talkers are going to give pause to a lot of Republicans. I don't think we'll ever capture the MAGA group, but I think that there's a lot of Republicans like me. Like I take political tests all the time to make sure I'm not a Democrat, but I am center right every time. And I think that there's a lot of people that are center right that don't have a home and probably voted for Trump. And then we're like, well, fuck. It's like the leopards ate my face people. We also have to be able to have a landing place for them, right? We have to get people in fucking red hats to take off the damn red hat and see it for what it is. But their reality right now is not our reality. And that's the fucked up part. How do we fix that?
I got a weirdly specific question.
Okay.
And this is about the same, we're on the same message, but 501c3 organization, not throwing the hat in. Very recently, as in days ago, I was just made the chairman of the Veterans Committee in my section of Georgia in the NAACP. I promised when I did that I was going to make sure that we were seen. So now I have not even had my first meeting yet. So I could have been just made the chairman and I could be getting fired right now for asking this question. We'll see how fast it happens. If I were to ask you, seeing what's happening with them taking down all of the so-called DEI. Recently, as of like, what was it, today or yesterday, yet another, great soldier was taken down, or airman, or I'm not even sure what it was. But and there's so many of them, I can't even think of it. But all of the contributions of Black people, Black women. If I were to ask you two, what could end up, since the other groups won't say it, we'll see if this can either get me fired or get my people fired up when I have that first meeting. What would you say? What would you want me to say? What would you want me to do? What would you want the NAACP to do when I have that first meeting? What can I say from you, Lindsey and Katie, to tell them
oh yeah, I say this with respect, but to get off the fucking sidelines, like, because I've tried to engage the NAACP for other issues. Like, I had a client, Denisha Montgomery Smith, a Black MP who was assaulted by 4 other MPs and then 21 days later found dead. So I've got a Black MP dead, and I can't engage officially the NAACP to make any kind of statement about why the military has murdered her. Now I can get the NAACP unofficially to say, hey, Lindsey, we got you. That's, we're going to come protest with you and this and that. But my perception of the NAACP is that they're looking for, I don't know, the right thing to jump on. And I'm just not seeing them in the game like I would like to see them in the game, right? Like, I'm in North Carolina where Reverend Barber is. Like, I need Reverend, and of course he's since stepped down and things like that. But I need these folks who live and breathe the same air that I live and breathe here in North Carolina to come to the plate, So like, the NAACP has a moment and they should take it. They shouldn't, and I'm sorry, I'm going on my rant here, but they shouldn't let some fucking white women take it for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got no business speaking on Black issues. Now I do, because I feel like Black people deserve to have the same rights as I do, but I shouldn't have to, it shouldn't be my face. You know what I'm saying? Like, when Denisha was murdered, it shouldn't have been my face. It should have been a familiar face to the Black community that they could look at and be like, yeah, no, that's wrong. But so anyway, sorry for whatever that's worth. No. Like there's such a negative connotation with white women taking the rear, so I'm like, and I get heat for it all the time, like, you're a white woman, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, then fucking come with me. Like, come with me. Come with me, please. I will give you the baton. And I would love nothing more than for the NAACP to stand with us and to continue this march. We're in this together. And the NAACP has got not just the resources, but the knowledge base. Like, they could be training all of us veterans in civil disobedience. They know, they are in the streets. They know exactly what needs to be done, how to do it, how to mobilize, and how to get this across the finish line. So I'm sorry if I'm getting you fired, but like, we are here for it.
No, I would have gotten myself back.
Take the lead.
The point is either I meant what I said or I didn't. So that's why I'm asking now. The whole point is, I plan on, when I get there, this is how I want to be that person. And hearing that from you is exactly the type of thing I want to hear. And I might just show them in the first meeting, like, so are we ready to do something? Or I'm not saying I can or can't. I'm literally.
Oh, I know you can't. I know you're not saying that. Just tell them all they got to listen to this crazy redhead.
Well, the question needed to be asked, and that answer needed to be heard. What say you, Katie?
I don't know if Jacksonville, Florida is just a weird place, but the NAACP here protests. Like, so I like, yeah, like, so I don't really understand why Lindsey's having such a problem. Because I was legit just at a protest this weekend, and their logo was on the flyer and everything. They were a sponsor of it. And so I think they want to get involved, right? And if you look at other, like LULAC, I'll use LULAC as an example. In 2020, LULAC fully backed our protests, fully backed the Vanessa Guillen family. And that push is what helped that family get to the White House, right? The NAACP here is like involved in a lot of local shit, right? Like the biggest protest I've ever had a hand in was BLM 2020. It was 10,000 people in Jacksonville. It was our largest protest ever in the city. They were there. They were there loud and fucking proud, my friend.
That tells me
so
I
think it's a leader.
A lot about the what do you call it? Like the regionality, the differences. That's good for me to understand that. What about veteran specific stuff, Katie? Did they're very strictly on that, huh?
Yeah. My battle buddy, my personal battle buddy, was murdered by her husband on Fort Campbell in 2018.
Sorry.
After obtaining a restraining order off post. Delivered it to him on a Friday. On a Sunday, he drove on post and shot her in the head. I got a call from, I was out by this point. I got a call from my old first aunt, asked me if I was still in Jacksonville because she was a native. And I was like, yep, I live here. Our local Veterans Council that I sit on tried to keep her name off our wall. She was a young Black girl from the north side of Jacksonville. And that's really when I got wholly involved in veteran activism, was that defining moment. Is a group of old white Vietnam vets were trying to keep a young Black soldier's name off our wall. And Jacksonville's wall is the second largest in the country. I called the NAACP and I was like, hey, this is going to be a weird story, but here it is. And I laid it all out, laid out the guidelines put out by the city, by the council, all of this. Her name's on the wall because the NAACP got involved. And, it was a battle I was willing to take. And I mean, I talk about civil disobedience, right? We talked about this earlier. I told these guys in an open meeting, either you put her name on the wall or I have the time that I am going to look up every name on this wall. And I'm going to find people I don't think should be here. And you're going to catch me on the news with a chisel.
Uh-huh.
Right? That was my defining moment that I was like, if Katie was murdered in anywhere, I went to a private school my entire life. They'd have a Katie Day in Jacksonville. Yeah. But because she was a young Black girl from the north side, and historically our politics are very race-based in this city, they weren't going to do it. So I went to city council, called them racist. That's a fun video. And they pulled me to the side and I instituted a policy with JIA. I changed a lot of policy with the help of the NAACP. They helped me write legislation to get passed in the city to make sure this never happened again. Awesome. Because city council didn't show up to her funeral. The mayor didn't show up, but Al Green did when he was in Florida, and not the same Al Green that's right now, but a different one. Before they Jerry.
The musician?
No, he was congressman. But that's how the NAACP can help, is because the NAACP has legislation people on a national level, is engage them and say, hey, even on a small scale, in city politics and state politics, they can help you write legislation to push, but they can fucking protest with the best of them. Let me tell you. So as a leader, protest.
I appreciate both answers. That gives me a lot to go into that meeting with. I appreciate that. I learned. That's awesome.
And we're open to collab. Open to collab.
I'm with it.
I am also, let me rephrase that, not I. We, Sons of Liberty, are open to collab. So one of the things that I'm not going to name names or sources, but, and I might catch some flack for revealing this, but in the lead up to this past weekend, the protest, we reached out to a number of different organizations, and we have people on staff in Sons of Liberty, and also just the fam of Liberty, like just the members who don't have any kind of leadership position in the structure, reached out to try to Mikey, cut it out, to expand our network and to get other organizations involved. And one of the people from Common Defense basically said something to the effect of, we know all the major players in the veteran community, and we don't know who's running this thing, so we don't think it's safe. And then they had something negative to say about Jessica Denson, who basically put the whole thing together, or spearheaded putting it together. So that kind of shit irks me. And I realize that veteran service organizations have to kind of protect themselves and be cautious of what they're doing. But if veterans, one of the things, all right, so backstory is I'm an indie filmmaker. My indie film company is Bravo Whiskey Charlie Films. I like to do veteran focused shit. I have veterans on my cast and in my crew if I can help it. So I did a thing about Afghan war veterans, and about 87% of the people in the cast or the crew were veterans, or they were still actively serving. I did a crowdfunding campaign and ran it through all these different spaces. And I'm like, hey, Afghan vets and Afghan OEF, OIF veterans, making a film about OEF veterans. Subtopic is going to be PTSD. And everybody's like, oh, that sounds really cool, but then they didn't fucking support it. So where I'm going with this is everybody wants to support veterans until it's time to support veterans. Me personally, you tell me that a veteran needs assistance, and I'm gonna look at it and be like, this dude's not a fucking Nazi, right? And then I'm fucking all in. I'm gonna go help that guy, because if I needed help, I would want that motherfucker in my corner. As long as he's not a raging douchebag or a Nazi, because then he's going to get knocked the fuck out. But that shit pisses me off so fucking badly. 0.45% of the population has served in the military. 0.45. Not 1%, not 4.5, 0.45. Less than a half of 1% of people alive today served in the military. That is a fucking tiny fragment of this population. And everybody who served knows, and even people who didn't serve know, that our tribe is diverse. Even if they're not out, we still have gay people, we have trans people, but aside from that, you have white people, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, Latin people, you have Muslims, you have Christians, you have Jews, you have atheists, you have fucking Wicca people. No offense, fucking Wicca people. Anyway, it's a huge microcosm within the military, and it's still 0.45% of the population. So when veterans need help, go fucking help them. God damn. Why? Like, our tribe is almost as bad as the left in eating itself. It's like, what? You got your DD-214 and you're like, fuck everybody else? That's what I'm seeing from MAGA. The rest of us don't need to be like that. Help veterans fight, period. Or 0.45, I don't know. Anyway.
Coalition building is it's important, right? So we
Absolutely.
Reached out to Common Defense. I sat in on their meeting like a week and a half ago. And I think we'll be able to partner with them in a coalition, because I sent an email. I was like, hey, president of our Sisters Keeper movement on the leadership team of 5051. We want to collab and build coalition. And I mean, they responded. They were like, yeah, we'd love to build coalition. I think, though, from what I can tell, and Lindsey, I'd like for you to speak on this. When I was doing all the stuff I was doing in 2020, 2021, the advocacy space for veterans is a strange place. It's so like Popular Girl, and Mean Girls, and I don't want to fucking work with your organization. And here's the thing, like back then, and I already told my board is probably live watching this. I'm gonna reiterate this. Y'all voted on it. Just be sure. I was very cordial back in 2020 and 2021. Lindsey can attest to this. I was amendable to pretty much any organization that wanted to protest with us. But then it got fucking weird, and I still had to be amendable. Not anymore. Right? Like, either we can agree on some pretty basic tenets of morals and ethics and how the Constitution, our government actually work and are intended to work, or you can't. And if you can't, then I don't fucking need you. Right? I will build a coalition of veteran organizations on a small scale. Right? And that's what I told 5051 vets on our Discord talking about organizing. Like, oh, well, I've reached out to these large organizations. Fuck large organizations. Go to the small organizations local to your city that do veteran advocacy and ask them. Right? Like, that's the thing, is like the veteran advocacy space is fucking strange, my friend. And Lindsey can attest to that, because she has to deal with all sorts of women veteran organizations on the coalition and the personalities that come with it. But it is a weird space, and I'm with you, Tim. Like, if you're not going to help, get the fuck out of the way, right? Nobody's coming to save us. Nobody.
Right.
Like, veterans have to save themselves. And if you're not going to be on board, at least don't stand in our way.
I feel like I've heard somebody say that nobody's coming to save us before.
Yeah, the thing I like to say is that some people want to fix the problem and some people want to stay in power. Because you got to understand that any kind of service organization, especially when they get big enough, they've got to have a problem to fix. And otherwise they're going to work themselves out of a job. And also, if they're a big enough organization, they need to be able to take the victory lap. So that's the problem that I have sometimes, is if, particularly if it's a client of mine, like I'm an attorney representing someone, so I'm bringing an issue to an organization to get behind, they won't get behind it unless they can then take that representation away so they can take the victory lap on that client. So how I do that with these other larger organizations is I do two things. I have like a sign-on letter that's like very just like, these are our demands. Do you sign on it or not? Again, let them say yes or no. I invite them to all my events, yes or no. And when the media or whomever asks, where is X, Y, and Z? Where? I don't know. I invited them, because I like what Cliff said, on this weekend. It was like, we can just do things, like, so I don't care who burp the baby. And if that's going to be us, we're going to burp the baby. And I like people like us, Katie, and everybody in this room are like folks that we're not looking for the glory. We're just looking to fix the problem.
And I mean, like, that was the problem, right? Is like, even when we were putting out flyers, man, it was like, I want my logo here, right? I don't give a fuck where your logo is. I just need you to show up to the fucking protest. Like, I don't give a fuck about your logo. I don't give a fuck about our logo. Like, just show up. It's like,
yeah, but we still invite them. Yeah. We still invite them.
Yeah.
I give them the option. I don't ever exclude them because I want them to come to the party. But when push comes to shove, they're going to have to be the ones that explain why they didn't come to the party, because we are going to be ultimately, I believe, the ones that get this across the finish line, because we're the ones in the arena getting our ass kicked, so to speak. Right?
Pretty much.
Business. Still a business.
Doug, I think your camera died again.
No, I turned it off because I'm here trying to not be sick on camera. So everybody, Be grossed out.
All right, fair. All right, so ouch, I just kicked the shit out of my chair with my bare heel. Oh.
Am I the only one not having problems at the moment? I'm just sitting here chilling.
I don't know. I read something in the private chat about your dog farting or something.
Yeah, he is. He got some meat treats, and the meat treats are adding an ambiance to the room behind me.
So,
he's all just sitting up there, laying all peaceful, like just every now and then.
Hypothetically speaking, to circle back to something that we were talking about earlier, civil disobedience training.
Yeah.
Let's say that we found some subject matter experts and got some really good advice, and we put together whatever, like a material or something. What is the best way to do this? Like, let's, as veterans, we all, and I believe every single person in this stream except for Matt is an Army veteran. So when I say task conditions and standards,
yes,
you're instinctively probably going to understand what I just said and what that means. And for everybody else that's watching, just stay with me. So task conditions and standards, but how do we distribute that to the masses? How do we give blocks of instructions? How do we do sergeant's time for these people?
I think you have to have an organization that is willing to have the time to do it. Right? Is that we have veterans all over the country in different time zones. Like I have a full-time job. Like I'm an activist in my off time and at work. Hopefully my boss doesn't watch this.
I can hope my bosses are.
I sent him the link. So Mark, if you're on, I do activism work all day. But the thing is,
definitely not during work hours.
Wink, wink. I'm a builder. I'm building a high school. So, anyways, we have to have an organization that does this. Like this is their niche thing, and this is part of the coalition building, right? Is you find an organization. I am sure it fucking exists, and none of us know it. That this is their niche, right? Is they teach civil disobedience. That is their niche fucking thing. We get them on board, and you do constant classes where people from all over the country at different times can show up, take the class. But we have to make sure whatever organization does it, or whomever, sends an email at least acknowledging that these people have taken the class, right? Because I don't want a bunch of people being like, oh, I'm all trained up, and then next thing I know, they're punching cops.
Right.
Like we have to have some form of proof that you've at least done the minimum standard of sitting through this class.
I don't necessarily. So we're talking about people potentially, catching charges, and we all know there are left-wing agitators that will show up and start shit just to see what fucking happens.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily know that I'm gonna say, hey, bare minimum passing standard on this is, your fucking PT test 70, 70, 70.
No, I feel it. I think at least at the bare minimum, like, because the 50-51 like standard is a committal to nonviolence, right? Is that they at least have to commit to not fight back, no matter what the fuck happens. Like you can't fight back. That is true civil disobedience. I mean,
have you had anybody fuck
that of like black women punching cops, and I'm fucking here for it. Trust me. But if we're gonna do it on a larger scale, then there has to at least be that should be the standard, is a committal to not fight back, or it's not going to work, and we're going to be, scorned on national news as veterans starting riots. Like that's not the fucking press we need.
Bonus Army is back, but now they've got guns, electric boogaloo.
And then something else to keep in mind too is that a a stated goal by various Trump acolytes is to rile up enough people to get enough violence in the streets to justify a crackdown.
The Insurrection Act.
Right.
So that he can pull out the stops, deputize his Proud Boy thugs, and just go to town. And apparently deport all of us to El Salvador, because that weirdly has become his new fetish.
I would love for the fucking Proud Boys to be deputized, because I would absolutely not incite violence, but go catch charges to fucking lay into some proud bitches. I would.
I love you. We're committed to nonviolent resistance, Tim.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what would happen. I would say, Abin Matt, you are now the leader of the Sons of Liberty. I hereby resign. Proud Boy. That's how that would go.
For the technical.
And if Abin Matt were to be like, "Hey, welcome back to the organization. Yeah. Now you're in charge," and Abin Matt were the Proud Boy.
But just see the headline: the Proud Boy is punching one Katie in the face. You know what I'm saying? And Katie and I turning our head back the other way and being like, "Is that it?" You know, or picking ourselves up off the floor. Like that is the image we need people to see. And in order to sustain this movement, we've got to really hone in on that, because if we keep veterans get amped, you know, and we have to look at it very, very easily.
Give them some Black Rifle coffee companies.
So, but if we want to like look at the arc of this movement and sustain this over the long haul, we can't be angry. Yeah. Right? Like anger is going to wear us out. It's going to wear down our nervous systems. It's going to wear down our minds. It's going to wear down our bodies. So part of like Operation Take Up Space in this thing we're going to be kicking off here, hopefully next month. It's about, we're going to act, or we're going to collaborate. We're going to act. We're going to integrate all of this trauma, and then we're going to rest. So if you do a protest, you need to come home and you need to integrate. That may be through movement, through yoga, through something, and then you need to rest, and then you can repeat. You cannot continue in this cycle of continuing to, let's say it is civil disobedience. You can't just do that all of the time. It is so, so important. Civil disobedience is like taking a heat round, right? And if you get shot in battle, you're going to be pissed off that you're shot. But I'm going to drag your ass off, and we're going to send you to the ward, and we're going to get you fixed up. You're going to go through physical therapy. You're going to do what you need to do, and then you can come back. And I need you to not be fucking trying to get back into the fight while you're healing from that gunshot wound. So it's so important for us to notice, like, do I have a gunshot wound right now? Like, am I okay? Can I do this? Maybe you can't be the civil disobedience that day. We need to have the right people in the right spots that are trained, but also that day can show up and be that person that day, to be that face for the rest of us. And if they can't, I just need them to take a knee, because that's going to affect the entire arc of this entire operation.
Well, plus we're disciplined.
Right.
We're disciplined. I mean, I told my boss the other day, like he's the most undisciplined person I've ever met in my life. Right. And I like I said, I work in construction, and I get so mad because nobody's disciplined. And that's the point, right? Is like, we are disciplined. We have the ability to No. I'm gonna be quite frank. And can I be direct, Big Sarge, to that comment?
Yes. So I tagged it because I want to address it, but I'm obviously, you can, as a member of the live stream, you can also address it. I didn't post this, the same as with Diana's comment. I didn't post this to like go off, but it is a topic.
Oh no, I'm just gonna address it, right? Like,
absolutely.
Nonviolence matters. If you look at any large movement that has ever worked in this country, it has been non-violent, right? That's why education matters in history. Non-violence and a committal to it works. I don't say the same thing about Ukraine. They're being actively invaded by a foreign entity, and they have every right to protect themselves.
100%.
right now in this country, we are not being violently attacked by the Trump administration. They're not shooting at us. And so, and I was going to say that. I was going there. Yet.
Knock on wood.
And I mean, I'll be the first one to say, the first shot fired, all fucking bets are off. Right? Like all bets are off. If you come to a veteran-led protest and a veteran gets shot, you think a committal to nonviolence is going to work? It's just not. At that point, if you kill one of our own, all bets are off, and it's just point blank.
Right.
But the history shows nonviolence works, because once you get violent, that gives the other side every reason in the world to tell people not to join. Don't believe them. They're out there beating people up and breaking shit. But if we're getting dragged away in handcuffs from a VA because we've decided to go in there with Black veteran pictures and trans veteran and taping it to the goddamn wall, and we're getting dragged out and beat by cops, that's a better image than combat veterans and non-combat veterans with guns pointed at people. That is going to deter this entire movement. It is going to train wreck it, and nobody is ever going to fucking thank us for our service again. And that's point blank.
So, aside from the massive it's not even apples and oranges. It's like, like you said, Ukraine got violently invaded, and we're not at that stage. But here's the thing: don't mistake nonviolence for I'm going to sit there and let you beat me. With the veteran community,
that fucking part.
The second that you throw down on a veteran, every other veteran worth their fucking DD-214 or whatever the equivalent is for guard and reserves, your formal letter of release, whatever it's called. Everybody who ever put on combat boots or any other fucking core fram, low quarters, whatever you want to call them, is going to be there, and it's going to be fucking sharks in the water. It's going to be a drill sergeant swarm of people. 14 March. That dude in the MAGA hat that showed up with his buddy on camera, they were looking to agitate. They wanted somebody to swing on them so that they could film them. Oh, it's the violent left. Blah, blah, blah. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen because, number one, we had people on our side who went out there and stood between that person in the crowd and made sure that no fuck shit happened. But also because we had some restraint. But had that person thrown the first punch, the cops that were 100 feet away wouldn't have gotten there quick enough, because that person would have been a fucking pile of red paste on the concrete.
Yeah, but just keep in mind, when you're in the NFL and you get a penalty, they only see the second shot. They never see the person that gets hit first. They only see the second shot. So just kind of just something to keep in mind,
So, that guy had a camera person on him.
Here's some perspective to this. So, number one, CRT crisis response team. That's people who were there on the ground. Big up to them. Their job before they got there was to make sure no matter what, you're de-escalating. You're de-escalating. You're de-escalating. You're de-escalating. I want to make sure that when everybody else hears Big Sarge talk, that he's not saying you don't have discipline. What happens is, before you get there, what's the plan? Is our plan to get arrested? Is our plan to get drug out? If that's the plan, then that's the plan. Okay? If the plan is you de-escalate, but keep our people safe, if the de-escalation doesn't work, then we have to keep our people safe. Depending on what the plan is the reaction. So I want everyone else every civilian out there, or everybody else who's watching this, who's like, well, maybe I shouldn't go with it. That was a different deal. That was keep our people safe in this crowd. And that's exactly what they would have done. If the plan is, we're here for nonviolent disruption. We're here for civil disobedience, and our plan is to chain ourselves here. Our plan is to get drug out. You need training to understand what the different plans are and how to react to them. But we can be both. So I just want to make that clear for everybody to understand, because I know I'm going to get it tomorrow from, well, what did he mean by such and such? That's what we mean. We need to know what we're there for. If we know what we're there for, it's different. If we're there to protect our folks, or we're there for a march, then we're not planning on you, MAGA person, running up and beating up our family. You're going to get smashed, period. If I'm there for a nonviolent protest to do civil disobedience, you got it. We're there for the TV. We'll make sure we know what we're there for. But it's two different things. In my book, I believe in SoL's book, in the Son of Liberty's book. So I wanted to make that clear, especially to you, Lindsey, because I see the uncomfortableness. I understand it. We understand the difference between nonviolent as a tool and self-defense as a way of life, right? There's two different things. So when we're using nonviolence as a tool, discipline is necessary, training is necessary. But there's a difference. When that difference needs to be said and understood off the surface.
Right. If you're going to go to a protest, just a protest, then you're there to be nonviolent, but that doesn't mean that you can't defend yourself. But if you go into a civil action where direct action, where civil disobedience is the thing, then you have to be able to demonstrate the restraint that Lindsey is referenced. It's you're going in there and somebody may bring it to you, but you can't necessarily bring it back to them, because that's the point.
There. That's why you're there.
Like
I do want to say real fast, I meant to say this at the start of the stream, but I had these issues with the audio, so I needed to make sure that was good to go. I want to address all of the people that showed up to the protest, and that includes you, Lindsey, because you were there as well. So we protested 18 January. It was one day. It was across the country. And that was stressful for our staff, the volunteers. And last weekend's build-up over the course of that week and the week prior to this protest weekend was a very, very long stretch for us. And it was stressful for a lot of people. Even if our staff wasn't going to be in DC, and not just staff, but also the regular Fam of Liberty members, everyone still supported not only those of us who did go to those protests, whether it was just the 14th or 14th, 15th, and 16th, or any combination thereof, and they supported people in DC, but also in their respective states across the country. And I also want to give an honorable mention, shout out to the members of our crisis response team who basically sat on Discord for 10, 12 hours, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. These guys, particularly the staff members and the volunteers, rose to the occasion, and you absolutely slayed it. So to those people, I want to say, if you're not proud of yourself and your teammates, go on and fix yourself, because I personally am absolutely proud of every single person that helped build that, and everybody who made an effort to go out, whether it was DC or their local protests that we didn't publicize because we weren't allowed to. I'm proud of you all. That's what I wanted to say. Carry on. Fix bayonets.
So I think like the last thing I want to say about like the nonviolence, right, is there are correct ways to organize protests. Right? There is an SOP to it. Like whether it's our protests, 5051, or any other protest, like there is an SOP to how a protest should be organized, planned, and executed. And one of the requirements, basic requirements, is safety officials and observers, right? So like I've been protesting with 5051 since it popped up on Reddit. I have always had a safety marshal, and I have always had an ACLU observer, because that is what it's about, right? Is if you have to deal with the police, you have this ACLU guy who knows protesting laws like the back of his hand. And then for the, safety observers are peacekeepers, right? You can Google that. They're in your area. They're trained peacekeepers for protests. Have them come, because they are like extremely well trained in de-escalation. Because like, let's get real here. Veterans are not great at it. None of us are like, that's not a fucking belief of ours, is de-escalation. Like it's far and few between. A lot of us have quick tempers.
Sure.
We're very direct. And it's like a threat assessment going in our head quickly while we're dealing with this shit. It's better to have civilians who are peacekeepers to deal with it. Because if they cannot deal with it, then they're going to get the cops. While we're having our peaceful, nonviolent protests. And the difference with civil disobedience is, A, it's not violent, but you absolutely know you might get your ass kicked. That's the point of it. Right? You're willing to take the fucking kick to the teeth just for the cause. But like at a protest, like protest should be nonviolent. And there are steps to ensure that it is non-violent with peacekeepers and ACLU observers. Because if the police try to infringe on your civil liberties, you got lawyers that are like, well, let me see your supervisor, let me talk to your captain, let's call the police chief, like this is all within the law. And I think that's it, right? Is that you have to follow the standard operating procedure for protesting for it to work.
And Lindsey, you mentioned. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and also just making sure that we're all on the same page about peaceful protest versus being protective. And when those things happen, you don't want to all be standing there ignoring some mega guy and someone behind you just Leroy Jenkins through the crowd to go get at the guy. Just rah! Just seeing someone in particular with a giant Sons of Liberty flag flying through. I just have that vision in my head.
No, you don't.
I know. Never happened. Never happened.
Never happened. The point is, if it's organized correctly, you have a team there to de-escalate and to ensure that those things don't happen.
Right.
I don't want anyone on my team to be stabbed by somebody with a red hat. That just can't happen. More importantly, they won't get that close because somebody's watching. Somebody sees this. They see an action. Somebody will wall it off. They'll get in between. And the idea is to ensure we keep the safety. And like I when the police are doing something, that's way different. There's nobody going to engage the police. That's the civil disobedience. When somebody on the sidewalk wants to do something dangerous to you, you need to make sure that you have people there who can see that before it happens and stop it before it happens. And 9 times out of 10, it'll never have to even get there. So it's just important to realize that, there's just two different things. There's two different things.
I also want to call out, by the way, the DC police actually did a pretty good job of intercepting and taking on, because I was on the comms for the whole event, listening to both the scanner and everybody else going at it, and it just seemed like as soon as something popped up, there was almost an immediate confirmation that okay, that's been that vector's been dealt with. That's now off the table.
The security was pretty good, both the DC police, but also like our own, not just Sons of Liberty, but also the other security staff that were present, like Jessica Dinson's security detail and the other security detail people that were present. so I do want to acknowledge that event was pretty well protected. Absolutely. Lindsey, you mentioned that you're in North Carolina. Are you by any chance in voting district 9?
Oh gosh, what's 9? Let me look.
It's a weird kind of sled-shaped chunk of terrain between.
Let's see. I'm in the 13th district. It looks like. I mean, we've got all kinds of gerrymandering in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Our state's
Right,
the one
right.
the Supreme Court for all that. So yeah, no, it looks like I'm in the 13th.
Let me look at that real fast because I think I might be 13th congressional district. Okay. All right. So, oh, you're like right down the road from me. All right. Never mind then. I was gonna. So we've had as a guest on our live stream, Richard Ojeda, a former presidential candidate and West Virginia congressperson, who's also a U.S. Army veteran, a retired major, and he's running for office for NC District 9 as a
that's right next door. That's like Moore, Hoke, Alamance County. That's right next door.
Right. Well, scrap that idea then. My little gears were turning. The small, tiny brass dwarven gears in my brain were like.
I smell smoke.
Yeah. Wait. What does that smoke smell like? Because it smells dank. Anyway. All right. So could like YouTube videos serve as a like at least like a base level of training for training people on civil disobedience and staying absolutely nonviolent? Do you think that would work? Or should it be like an in-person thing?
I mean, I don't think it does work. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you could do it on Zoom. I mean,
Zoom. Yeah, okay.
Or wherever.
I could see that, right.
I don't like, how are you going to take up that much space in that many cities? I mean, because we have people in our group right now that are in like rural places. And I mean,
yeah. So you guys said that for the 6, you have 5-point plan. Maybe I think I was a few minutes late, so maybe you said it. But what are the 5 things we're fighting for?
So it's 5 demands, wasn't it?
5 demands.
Yeah, give me a sec. Let me pull them up.
And do you guys run these chapters separately, or are you guys like working together for the veterans portion of 50-51?
We all work together. I'm sure once we get big enough that we'll break out into state chapters. But right now it's just trying to get people like trained to know how to organize protest, how to, stay on task, how to do certain things. And then once we get that figured out, then we'll absolutely go into state chapters. I think when 50-51 like started, it grew so quickly that they had no choice. But as Tim pointed out, it's 0.45% of the population that are veterans. And like I said, 65% of veterans voted for Trump. That the population as of right now is going to be tiny enough that we can keep it as a collective until we grow it. And our group is open to families too. We voted on that. It's veterans families. But okay. All right, our 5 demands, number one is no more cuts to the VA, rehire fired employees, and fully fund the PACT Act. Number two is ensure VA support, healthcare, and counseling for MST survivors. Number three is overturn the trans ban and ensure full healthcare access for trans veterans and active duty members. Number four is restore protections for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the VA and DoD. And number five is protect democracy, restore diplomatic norms, and maintain strong alliances with global democratic leadership.
Maintain strong alliance with democratic leadership. Democratic.
You want me to expound?
Yeah, democratically elected leadership or democratic
global.
Leadership? Oh, global. Okay, global.
Like on a global scale, like that one. So here I can expound on it. Diplomatic norms. The United States has historically led global efforts to promote democracy, but recent shifts towards authoritarianism and attacks on democratic institutions pose risks to our national security. The importance of alliances. Alliances such as NATO are critical for U.S. military strategy, deterring threats from hostile nations and ensuring global stability and opposition to authoritarian regimes. Aligning with authoritarian regimes that undermine democratic governance and threaten U.S. interests weakens our nation and endangers veterans and service members.
Outstanding.
I mean, because to be real, one of our board members for our Sisters Keeper movement, and she's also one of the leaders in the 50-51 vets, she's in Germany as a spouse. Like she was active duty Army. Now she is a spouse, and she is in Germany. And what's going to happen if we pull out of NATO and we have a bunch of active duty members in host countries? Like, do the SOFA agreements disappear? Does it become now hostile towards our active duty and their spouses?
Yeah. Oh, it's a global fight.
So we've had a large influx of people join the live stream. Tell us again about our Sisters Keeper real fast, please.
Oh, okay. Our Sisters Keeper movement is I'm the president. We are a women veteran activist / advocacy organization. We stood up protests in 2020, 2021 surrounding the death of Vanessa Guillen, 29 cities nationwide, including Hong Kong, twice.
And Lindsey, you're in that organization, but something separate. Did I remember that correctly?
Right. Like we amplify their message. I'm the chair of the Military and Veterans Women Coalition. And so that's a coalition of a bunch of nonprofits in this space that get together to advocate for women's veterans issues, ranging from homelessness, reproductive rights, MST, just anything and everything that you can think of as it relates to female veterans.
Okay. I'm trying to keep tabs on the comments as well, so make sure that there's some fucking Fed posting going on, but I'm not going to action it because I'm going to let that go.
So I'm going to say this, because I'm going to be leaving soon to do the family thing, but I did not know that, I don't know how I didn't know, but I didn't know. I'm talking with somebody and have been for a few days who is trans, and they were in the military and they moved to a different country. And while they were in this country, all of this stuff has happened. And now they can't get back. Like, everything, their visa's been taken. Everything's been taken because in the military, I guess, I don't know what it is, but your status as a veteran, it disappears. Everything's been taken from them. They cannot come back. unless they denounce being trans, unless they actively try to either or detrans.
Are they still in, or are they like they got their DD 214 or whatever equivalent?
They're out.
They've made their passport void, is what's happened by the Trump administration. Okay. So that's the logistical thing. Wow. So you're right. You're exactly right, Doug. They've got to say, I'm not trans, and to change that on their passport and to get a new passport in order to come home. And those are the stories I feel like we really need to be amplifying. Like if you want to link them with us, we will. Like those are the stories I want to see in the news. That's the thing that we need to see, like the person. And if they don't want to be the face, we can use a vignette, but like to show the American people like who this is happening to. Like this is not like a nameless person. Like these are real people that are facing this. And like my kid is trans.
Now I'll talk to her about
that. Is his sex, not his sex assigned at birth. So like I'm not taking my kid out of the country at all because he won't be able to get back. You know,
is that even legal?
I'm so confused right now.
It is now because, so I get it though. What you're saying is simply because they're only recognizing the two sexes. So your passport is now void unless you.
But they may not have the identification to get a passport. So like for example, like my kid's name has been changed and all that kind of stuff. So it's like I have to get him a passport in that new name. So like just because the government decides that he can't be trans, I wouldn't be able to get a different passport for him. Does that make sense? So he would be stranded wherever he would be at.
Yep.
Like your
what country is this person in? What country is this person in?
I don't want to say I don't want to say where they are, but in any country that you're in to come back, I thought it was just because she was a veteran and they were cracking down on it there, but now I'm realizing it's really just the fact that she's trans. She made her visa void by being trans, and only way to make it right again is to basically denounce that you're trans.
There's a reason I'm asking, and you don't have to say, but this is considerably dangerous if we're outing people in countries that are not friendly to transgender individuals. This is going to cause people to get fucking killed.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Can you at least get that person to share their story, like type it out?
So
Tim,
after this, for sure. As soon as Lindsey said that, I mean, they might be watching now, but I will be talking to them again. I plan on talking to them again, and now I have new information. I would like nothing more than to do everything I can to share stories like that, if they're willing to do it.
Yeah, well, we're going to share stories. It's one of our calls to action. We did it with about surrounding MST, right? It's like how we did it around MST is we told our stories, we told other people's stories. It was 5 generations of women that told their story at my local protest, because we talked about dehumanization earlier, right? But humanizing it works well.
Right, I'm still here.
So yeah, we will push that shit fucking everywhere. And if you feel comfortable, Tim has my personal email. Send me the country. And the reason I'm asking for that is there are more ways than one to get someone out of a country.
I got you. I would.
Remote strike team. I'm down. Let's go.
There are more than one way.
Right.
Let's be fucking honest here. If that is our battle buddy, like everybody on this call, everybody fucking watching the live stream, contact people about this, because I didn't know that was an issue, right?
I didn't know until I've been speaking to this person. So
we have service members trapped in foreign countries. Are you fucking kidding?
No. What I would love is talk to you guys more about telling that story and exactly what the whole thing is about. Well, not on here, and you will be very intrigued by that story.
I'll start a group email with Katie and Lindsey and Doug and myself, and we'll take it offline.
Yeah.
I mean, we can continue talking about it here. I just mean, like, for as an action item, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Actually, let me do that right now.
What we're as an attorney, what I'm advising the LGBTQ community now is to there's a significant risk to start changing your documents, and we're advising them to not until Trump's gone. Yeah. And if you don't have the gender markers on your passports and things like that for your sex assigned at birth, then we're advising you not to travel out of the country. Like there's the risk is significant, and we can't guarantee that anybody's protected, and particularly since trans people are being actively targeted,
outed,
yeah,
searched for,
right?
Searched for. I mean, it is not a game. We know logically that this is happening. We know that this was the rule. We heard when they passed this bill. We heard when they passed that one. When you see it, when you hear the story, when you see the face, and you realize, like El Salvador, like maybe they play music over that and think it's funny, but when I saw it, it's nothing but triggering. Like, wow. And there's people, when you see that, because they are who they are, and they decided to change their past, and it was on their passport for who knows how long. Like, it's been there. Can't come back.
We know that in the instance with the green card holder who was coming back into Boston at Logan International, and they used that as an opportunity to grab him. They straight up grabbed him. They tortured him.
Yep.
If he didn't end up in the hospital, we'd never even know.
Yep.
So I can imagine that, and that was a passing man. He was, as far as I've heard, not a trans person. They're going to be much worse with the trans community. He
was in the States lawfully on a green card. Yeah.
And the Trump administration has given a green light to exercise basically state violence against anyone that comes within this gray zone, if you will.
I'm absolutely floored by this.
Yeah.
Like a holy, sorry.
That's how I was when I
trying to fucking process.
I see you over there. That's how I was when I first heard it. We spoke for about an hour because I had to realize, I had to process it.
Yep.
But if you ever thought that it wasn't real, if you ever thought that, okay, we're getting there, when it really gets bad, I'll fight. That's where we are. If that's you out there, and you were saying to yourself, I know it's coming, but when it really gets bad, I'll fight. That's where we are. That's it.
I'm so angry.
It's today.
Oh,
so I'm going to leave. I hate to do that to you, but these are the facts. This is why we fight people. And if anything has ever motivated you, let it be that story. I appreciate you guys so much for coming on. I feel better for having met you. And we'll stay in contact with this 4-way email.
Yeah, definitely send us that story. I mean, like Diana Patton told her story from a VA perspective. I have 2 personal battle buddies. If I didn't medically retire, I would have been at 18 years. They are currently at 18 years in. They transitioned in the military, both combat vets, and they're being dismissed. Yep. So like that's another aspect. So that's personal. But holy fucking shit, we're now stranding trans people around the fucking world, veteran service members.
She fought for the country, and she doesn't have a home. Yeah.
You can't like it's against like some international law to like forcibly destate someone. There's an official phrase for it, but I don't know, remember what the fuck it is. But you can't like make someone stateless.
I mean, there's laws to prevent that kind of thing, but there are ways that people do get stuck between states, if you will. This was certainly not one of the scenarios where that happens. There's been, there's actually a.
I gotta run, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh,
thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
it was lovely meeting you.
There was that movie.
Sorry for ending with that story, but I thought it was important.
I'll be up all night fucking researching how to get people out of countries.
Good.
So.
Good. All right, guys.
There was a Tom Hanks movie, The Terminal. It was based on a true story where a person had a passport for one country, and while he was in technically international territory at the airport, that country ceased to be.
Yeah.
And thus he was.
You talking about the Iranian guy who lived in like Charles de Gaulle Airport for like 40 years?
I remember that.
It wasn't 40 years, but it was for a while.
I remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah, but basically that's what happened was like this, and it can't possibly be lost on the Trump administration that they're causing the exact same thing.
They didn't
know what the fuck they're doing
her though. So like she's according the government's position is that she's still a citizen. She just has to denounce that she's trans,
which is a ridiculous requirement.
Right. But so the government's argument is different. So like if she's not already in contact with the ACLU, that's who we need to get her in contact with, so that she can jump on any other lawsuits they've got in the queue, or the ACLU could take up that one.
Yeah, you've got to think there's got to be some kind of connection
for this. She's stuck in a foreign country. The ACLU is not going to do anything in a foreign country. They don't have fucking jurisdiction. Like, let's be real here. We have a battle buddy somewhere in the world right now that has not only been kicked out of the military, but now can't get back to the home that they fought for.
Yeah.
Like, the ACLU is not going to fucking cut it. Like, this is one of those times that I truly believe if we're going to take care of our own, then this group and everybody on that fucking chat, we need to brainstorm of how the fuck we get this person home. And is there more people? We only know of one. If there's one, there's more.
Certainly. There's no way it's just this one.
Holy
so
shit.
Just to throw in an example out there, in I think it was 2014, there was a United States Marine. I can't remember if he was a Marine veteran or if he was like still actively serving, but he accidentally drove into
Mexico,
the lane to a border patrol, and you can't turn around in a post 9/11 environment. You're stuck. So he made a wrong turn into a thing that ultimately was a one-way street to the border, and the border patrol was like, I can't let you turn around. You got to go through and then turn around and come back. But as soon as he crossed over, he got nabbed by the Mexican authorities because they knew he was coming, and they're like, okay, senor, come over here. And they looked at it in his fucking vehicle, and the dude had a weapon because he's a Marine. What else would he have in his vehicle? So they arrested him. And like 2 days after this guy was arrested, it hit national news, and within hours, there were several Facebook groups, I know because I was in 3 of them, that were like, we're going to go on a hunting trip near Sierra Vista, Arizona, which is right on the border. Fort Huachuca is right there. We're going to go on a hunting trip, and we might be gone for several days. And these dudes were serious about some stuff that might probably be illegal. I'm just saying that shit happens. So with regards to this, I want to see if we can get more details so we can figure out how to legally resolve this situation before it turns into that. And on that note, I also want to point out our next live stream on Tuesday is going to be a couple of guys that I met at the DC protest, the Chance Meeting Group. One of them is a Marine veteran. His name is Caesar. Very nice guy. After that, I would actually like to get Diana Patton on the live stream and some other trans service members and veterans and whatnot, and make that like a whole theme. Do you guys think we could do that? Like not this coming Tuesday, but like
I can
Tuesday
reach out
after.
to Lindsey Church. Lindsey knows her as well. She runs Minority Veterans of America. She'd probably be a good one to. She deals in that. That might be a good contact for you.
That would be April 1st. I just realized it's the start of Confederate Heritage Month.
And Lindsay's pronouns are they, them, just as a heads up.
Well,
all right.
I probably misgendered her. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
I'm so sorry, Lindsay. My bad.
No, it's all right.
I suck at that. I always have to apologize.
Helping our cuz out.
Work on it. But yeah, like, guys, that situation is so mind-blowing. This is what I'm talking about. Is situations like that, even like that's a cross aisle issue. Is that I hope
It should be
that people have enough fucking humanity to be like, yeah, we probably shouldn't strand people in other countries. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Expecting any kind of empathy from the empathy is a sin crowd.
Yeah, I know that's the fucking problem. But like I am no bullshit. Like, guys, like veterans need to take lead on this. And I saw it in the chat. I think it's an option really worth exploring is getting that person to a Canadian embassy.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah, no, that makes some sense. Would they have the ability to do anything though? Like, could they
probably ship them back on a diplomatic flight to Canada? At least they're not overseas. I mean, this is live, but I'm willing to go on a secret squirrel mission to Canada.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like going overseas and doing secret squirrel shit is a lot more fucking sketchy than at least in our own goddamn backyard. You know what I'm saying? Like, but Canada is pretty fucking pissed off right now. I mean, 5051 has a whole Canadian wing to it. And I'm probably going to reach out to those admins and leaders in the Canada group to get their feel on it. But yeah, this is an action item that everybody making fucking comments. Like, you need to bring light to this on your social media, your fucking neighbor, random people at the goddamn store, right? Like, this is a story that needs to be shared and make national news. Like, this is not something that needs to stay in this fun circle of trust. Like, this is something that is out fucking landish.
Yeah, I agree. Let me see if I can get Doug to divulge some more information privately, and we can figure out a plan of action. I think we can figure some shit out here that doesn't involve some fucking